This is going to be a fun video to do. I'm standing in a 110,000 square foot building right now with the developer of this property, Kris. We're going to get his thoughts on how this whole process went and some of the key things to keep in mind when you're looking at a property. But we're going to do a walkthrough of this property, point out a few of the key things to look at, and then I'm also going to get Kris to explain some more on this. So this is actually in the middle of a brand new business park, industrial park. We're a couple minutes away from the airport. We're very close to a highway, and those are some of the key reasons why some large companies have already occupied in this building, including FedEx, Amazon, a large distributor. Deal's not quite done yet, so we won't say who it is, but they're already very close to coming, as well as another company in the area as well. This building, quite interesting. You could see that the floors actually haven't even been poured yet, so we're standing on the gravel. Construction company actually just left a few minutes before we pulled in. So this is an active construction site that's temporarily been closed down. Kris, thanks for meeting me here and letting me walk through and get to ask you some questions about the building.
Yeah, no, it's great. Thanks for coming out, and we'd love to show you kind of from ground up what we're dealing with. We're getting close to completion with occupancy probably as early as I'd say August 1st this year, depending on the tenant build-outs. But yeah, we're at a point now we need to get some tenants, so it's always good to walk groups through and give you a little bit more detail on the building.
So Kris is with a company called Remington Development Corp, and they're no strangers to working with some of the biggest companies in the world. In the recent video, I did explain more of the things that you want to look through on the exterior of the building, such as the loading, the marshalling area, access to the building. So I'll leave a link to that one in the description. But in this one, we're just going to focus on some of the key things when you're walking through the building. So let's go and we'll take you through it. So Kris, I think one of the first things that people might want to know is the column grid. So the column grid is basically how many columns there are and then the distance between them. What's the dimensions on this column grid?
So we have, it's a 10-bay building. This building was designed to be a bit of a hybrid facility. So it's a combination of dock and grade loading. We'll get into that as we walk through the building. But our typical bay size dimensions are 55 by 40. And we have a 200 depth on the building. So minimum bay sizes starts right around that 11,000 square feet and up.
And why is that 55 feet? There seems to be a magic number where a lot of buildings are built with that 55-foot column grid.
Yeah, you know, it's a good question. It comes down, I think it's a changing of the trends over the year. If you go into some older vintage product, you'll see kind of 37, 40-foot column grids, which just are inefficient in today's world. So it really just comes down to the flow of the business, and we found that the 40-foot span is now obsolete. So 55 is our new minimum. All of our buildings that are built in today's world are going to be at the 55-foot span on the width of each bay, if not maybe pushing it to 60 in the future.
And a couple more things that have evolved in modern warehouses, as well as even just the ceiling height. So you're 28-foot clear. And when we say clear ceiling height, what's that? How would you describe what the clear ceiling height is?
So the clear ceiling height in this building is to the underside of the joists. So racking equipment could go as high as 28-foot clear. So anything above that, obviously you run into the issue of hitting the mechanical or the joist system. So 28-foot clear is kind of the minimum, I think, in today's world. This building, because it is more towards the hybrid model where it could be a manufacturer, production user, 28-foot clear is sufficient. But as we go into our next building, which is just going to start construction here right away, 36-foot clear is the minimum, and that is geared more towards the distribution-based users, which in today's market, 36-foot would be the minimum for a distribution user.
So the 28's to the underside of the joist, but the ceiling could actually be another 2 to 3 feet higher.
It's about another 4 feet, I think. So I think we're up to 32.
And actually, if you could pan up real quick, included in that, like right below the ceiling deck itself, is the sprinkler system. And this is something that often gets overlooked, particularly in older industrial properties. And this is becoming more and more required, whether it's from the municipality, whether it's from the insurance company, whether it's just the tenant that actually occupies it themselves. More and more requirements are for sprinkler system. So this is EFSR sprinkler?
Exactly. So, and Chad's right, it's more of a code issue now once we get to a certain building size. I'm not going to give you the exact number where it's not required, but a building of this size, ESFR is required. And then again, pretty much every user that we're dealing with or chasing on the leasing front would require the sprinkler system as well.
Yeah, so just keep an eye out for it. If a property doesn't have an EFSR sprinkler system, it's very expensive to add it after the fact, and it usually is caught way late in the process where deal or terms have already been agreed to, and then somebody notices that there's not a sprinkler system. So just catch that as early as possible, and it'll save a lot of headache. From the other side, going from the ceiling all the way down to the floor itself, why is the concrete floor itself the last thing to be done in a building?
Yeah, good question. So typically, not all users, but some users have either specialty equipment that has a heavier weight load that we have to reinforce some of the concrete slabs. So we like to leave it out until we know the tenant that's going to be taking the space. There have been a couple situations with some of our other projects where we actually installed under slab electrical system. So to avoid all the cable trays and everything throughout the shop, it was a highly intensive shop build out. I can't remember. It was on South Central. High Caliber took the space, and they required all electrical to be under slab just to avoid the kind of cords hanging everywhere throughout the rest of the space. So,
and then I guess just from where the washrooms where they get placed. So over on this side is where all the office space will get built out, but it'll be dependent on where the tenant actually wants their washrooms to go.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
If you don't pour the slab right away, then you've got the ability to move the plumbing around versus having to jackhammer up the concrete floor.
And again, going kind of a comparison between the two buildings, this building will probably leave the slab out for as long as we can. We may pour a few of the bays just so we can expedite timelines. And then we always would leave that front office portion out completely so we can deal with the plumbing and washroom allocation, electrical, everything else before the slab in the front's poured. I think as we move towards our distribution building at Discovery Center 4, we'll probably pour the slab a little bit sooner on that because it's more of a standard slab finish for that type of user than what we'd see in this building.
Yep. And then one other point as well is that the sump, it's a dual compartment sump that you have in every second bay.
Yeah.
But with the floor not being put in, if somebody wanted to, it's a lot easier to install another sump before pouring the concrete and again, potentially having to rip it up.
Yeah, exactly. The nice thing is our plumbing line actually runs across the whole back wall of the building. So it's fairly easy to add the sumps. Trench drains are another thing that a lot of users need now. So a benefit of not having the floor poured, if there was a user that needed a 40-foot trench drain, we can add that and then pour the floor after the fact. Actually, with FedEx next door, we ran into a concern where we poured the floor, and of course we poured it, and the tenant that took the building wanted us to cut out about 2 bays of the concrete that was already poured. So it was a pretty expensive and time-consuming process, which is why if we can, we'll leave the floor out as long as we can.
Yeah. So you mentioned that this building is designed as a bit of a hybrid. So there's a lot of great overhead doors versus a lot of buildings on the, at least on the distribution side right now, being built with a lot of dock doors. But you've also built yourself in a lot of flexibility to convert some of these grade doors to dock doors if a user wanted. So what's the process if somebody did want to convert some of these grade doors into dock doors?
For sure. You know, we wanted to, again, make the building as flexible as possible. So it's actually, it's a fairly quick process. The building is at grade, so we actually have to dig out the dock from the outside of the building. So we don't have to add a ramp. We actually are digging out dirt in this scenario. Yep. So we can add the doors. The one challenge we've come across is because the panels are already in place, we can't add more than 1 door for every dock door. So if you look at the back of the building, those grade doors that you see there, we can only add 1 dock door there, even though there's enough room to accommodate 2 doors, just with the panels already being in place. We can kind of swap it out 1 for 1, but it seemed to work out so far, and we were able to add doors for Amazon and FedEx.
So when we're looking at a building like this, let's talk timelines. What's the process from this being raw dirt to taking all the services to the land to getting the structure up to where we are today? Yeah. That's a topic that's very sensitive to a lot of people right now with supply chain issues. And we could even talk inflation and price increases as well. But from a standpoint on time, what was the duration to get it to where we are today? Yeah,
you know what? It's funny. I'd love to say that timelines were where they were a year ago, but they aren't. And it's just a reality that everybody's faced with today. As we've kind of gone through, this has been our 3rd building of the same caliber, same size, and the timelines have all stayed fairly similar for the first 3 buildings. And it was about, I want to say, from full green light, go ahead, start on drawings, we were at that time probably about a 13-month window. I think that now realistically is probably pushing up to 16 months from finalized plans. There's a little bit of planning and design that goes into the process before that. But once we say, look, we're submitting drawings for permit approval, it's probably, in today's world, I hate to say it, probably closer to 16 months.
And assuming a company signed a lease on this today and needed some office space constructed, what's the timeline to turn that around?
Actually, you know what? I can answer that one fairly confidently, because we're pending on these 3 bays that we're standing in right now, and it's going to require about 2,500 square feet of office to be built out in the front. We are quoting September 1 joint fixturing period. So with I believe a November 1st lease commencement. So it's probably a good 6-month window for sure. If we have more time, the better. There's just certain materials that we can't control. I think rooftop units, the most recent quote that our construction team told me were, I think it's a 20-week delivery time. So, you're 5 months almost just to get rooftop units to build out the HVAC system for your office, let alone a handful of other construction materials you're going to be waiting on as well. So
that's wild.
It is nuts. It's not a good thing.
So, and prices have been going up. So you're hit out a double whammy. You're going extended timelines, and then you're also faced with prices. What have you seen prices, whether for concrete or steel? What have you seen in that regard?
Yeah, you know what? It's up across the board. There isn't one item that's gone down. I think everything from steel, concrete, mechanical, electrical, everything is up. It's hard to pinpoint and give an actual percentage, but realistically, I would say this building being completed only about 6 months after Discovery Center 2, right across the street, we're up about 15% on costs, I'd say. And unfortunately, there's probably no real end to sight. Hopefully it turns the other direction, but right now, everything's going up, and if groups can't agree to execute in a timely manner, we can only hold pricing for so long. So there's been a couple of scenarios as of late where negotiations dragged out 2-3 months, and we actually had to go reprice the job again. And unfortunately, costs are up, rental rates have to follow. So it's a harsh reality, but I think users need to be aware that the longer they wait, it's likely not getting cheaper, it's likely getting more expensive.
But I think that's worth emphasizing as well, is don't underestimate the time it takes to go through the whole process, whether it's something as simple as just adding office to an existing space, or whether it's a ground up development like this. There's just a process that's involved, and that's the same in any market across the world. But just don't underestimate that. If you're working in collaboration with the developer and you've got a team on your side, you can navigate that better. But just be cognizant that it usually takes longer than you expect, and things do seem to go up in price throughout that process as well. So just be sensitive to the time and the cost in it, and you'll be much better prepared if there are any setbacks in that. One of the things I wanted to also get your thoughts on here, Kris, was the heating. So I noticed that you've actually got radiant heating over the overhead doors there, which is more typical in a climate like ours. I don't think you'd see that in Florida. But in climates like ours where it does get colder, that's surely to break up the heat loss outcome when it's cold outside. But you've also got the overhead gas-fired units up here as well. What was the decision to add the radiant heating there? Is kind of as I...
I think one of the, features that our company has always instilled is we build quality, and we want to build something that will last. So for us, the amount of times those overhead doors open and close in a day in minus 30 weather, there needs to be a separate heating system above those doors just to keep that general area, warm and workable. And then what we've found is the forced air unit heaters have worked out well for us. I know we've looked at some other alternatives in the market, and these just seem to be a solid go-to, and we're comfortable, we're happy with the product that's delivered. And then the office component, that's a totally separate rooftop unit. So really the forced air unit is just for the warehouse, and then the radiant tube along the loading doors, and then the office will have its own HVAC system as well.
Just a couple more things I wanted to get your comments on. We've covered covered the foundation, we covered the column grid, the ceiling heights, sprinklers, power. How did you guys determine how much power you were going to bring to this building? And then the second question will be a makeup air system.
Yeah.
But first, from a power standpoint, how did you guys determine how much power to bring here?
Yeah, you know what, it's funny. We started with 2,000 amps on the first building that Amazon took, but before Amazon took the space, we were actually negotiating with a tenant that required 2,400 amps. So we thought 2,000 amps was sufficient, and then we found out there were a few heavier power users that came to the table. So we beefed it up on the next two buildings, so we have a 2,400 amp service to both of our buildings.
Yep.
And we've just found that sufficient. As you go through, if it's divvied up to maybe 3 or 4 tenants that each have 600-800 amp service, it goes fairly quick. So our mentality was, let's overbuild, and then we have that capability from day one to kind of accommodate any different power requirement that's out there.
When you're going through that exercise, do you also look at what type of capacity you could access if someone needed even more than that?
Yeah, so we always have a price on that. There's always an add-on if somebody does require it. So we have that in our back pocket. What we've found, though, it's funny, a lot of users say they have a power requirement, and after we sit down with our construction team, walk through their facilities, get their actual power readings from EPCOR or whichever their provider is, we find that they're shocked to realize they don't need anywhere near that power capacity they originally thought or anticipated. So one of our processes is try to get in front of the user as quick as we can, and that's our construction team meeting with their operations team, and we'll walk through their power requirements in more detail. Yep. So we've really been, lucky to reap the benefits of identifying it right away. You don't need that much power, and we have enough power to accommodate whatever they do need.
Yep. And just to add on to that as well, so this building does have a lot of power. It's not uncommon, though, for a 110,000 square foot distribution center to have a third of this much power. And that can work if they're just doing light warehousing and there's not a lot going on in the building. But as we start getting into more automation, more Internet of Things, where everything's connected to the internet, just requires more power, requires more broadband connectivity. And as we see more automation and robotics in here, that's all going to come with a corresponding increase of power requirements. So I think future-proofing a building like you guys have, where you have not just a considerable amount of power, but the ability and pricing to access even more, is great forward thinking. But don't underestimate the amount of power that's in there, because as we continue to evolve technologically in the industrial real estate industry, there's going to be more of a draw on power. I think that's going to be a steady trend going forward.
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing is timing. The other issue we've talked about earlier is delivery and access to power does take a significant amount of time. So if somebody needed the space tomorrow and needed power tomorrow, you're likely not going to be able to deliver it. You're going to have to delay the deal, bring the power in, and deal with the extra timing.
Yeah, great point. And then the last, makeup air unit. So I know that you guys don't have any makeup air units in here, but that we talked a little bit earlier, and you're basically just speccing that out for what people are going to need. So once you have a conversation with them, you'll put it in there. Are you finding that, just like sprinklers becoming more of a code issue and a lot of tenants requiring it, are you finding the same with makeup air units now?
Yeah, definitely. It's pretty much required in every deal that we pursue. So really, it is kind of wait and see what comes game. We have to know what the user is going to be using the space from, whether it's welding different machines, different equipment, running vehicles inside the building, whatever it may be. So we need to really get a sense on the tenant's use before we actually go out, price, and include the makeup air in the rental rate. Which is one of the reasons on our marketing packages we don't necessarily put a face rate on the building, because it's so hard to put one face rate for a user that has minimal office build out, just clean distribution, to the group right next door that has 6 machines going and welding arms throughout the shop. Like, it's not cut and paste. So we really like to get in front of the tenant, see what their requirements are, go price the work they need, and then come back with a lease proposal.
And I'm really glad you said that, because that's come up by so many people that I've heard that just get annoyed that there isn't a price listed on there. But once you break it down as you have, you can see that 2 different users can have completely different needs. And if you put a price on there at $9 a square foot, but one tenant has a whole bunch of requirements, their mind is already anchored to that $9 a square foot range, and trying to get them off that is actually really difficult. Whereas I think people can understand that there's input costs that go into it, whether it's an extensive air makeup unit or heavier power or more reinforced floors. That all just comes with a cost. So I really like the idea of engaging that conversation with a developer or a landlord as quickly as possible, and just understand that that's why there's not often a quoted price, particularly on new construction like this.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was really well said on that, because it's tenant specific on everything, and it'd also be, if you had found a tenant that took 110,000 square feet versus one tenant that, what's the smallest bay size you could do here?
11,000. Yeah.
So 11,000, you have to put in 2 demising walls on either side. You've got to put in extra washrooms. Just everything that comes with that really adds to the cost.
Exactly. The rates definitely are not the same. So it's good to have that flexibility, because you hit the nail on the head. If a user sees it's a $9 rental rate, but that rental rate's for the whole building, and then you come in at $12 on 11,000 square feet, they're telling you to pound salt and go into the next option right away. So it's a lot easier to justify.
So this is all LED lighting?
Yep, all LED. It's kind of the market standard, I think, for new construction product, but a lot more efficient and bright. You can see as we walk through the building, we only have every second bay lit up, and it's almost as bright as if the whole building was lit up.
Is there a big cost between that and the older like T5s?
No, it's not much of an upgrade, but it's something I think is required. I think most users, especially the larger institutional or international companies that we talked about earlier, they'll all want to see LED lighting in their facilities.
So if you have a property or you're in a space already, it is a pretty simple upgrade to do. It doesn't cost a whole lot, and it adds quite a bit to the property. So I'd encourage you to do LED lighting, or at least look into it. And then we can get back to shooting some B-roll here.
Yeah,
awesome. So how much gravel is here? What are the specs actually on the flooring on this?
Yeah, so actually you can see as we walk through the building, it's a smooth finish toward that end, but as you look behind us here, there's the poly that's down, and then we actually put 6 inches of gravel crush, followed by 7 inches of reinforced concrete slab.
Well, this has been really helpful. I'll certainly leave some information to Remington's website where people could find out more information about this. It's obviously only going to be applicable for people in this market, or you could look at their website and see where else they're active, but it's still very helpful, because I think this building is going to be very similar to industrial properties all over the world, really. So I think you did an awesome job of making that generic enough where people can really get a good sense of some of the important things in a warehouse, and then some of the questions that they should be asking, and then just getting the landlord or developer involved in that process as early as possible.
Great. Well, no, it's been amazing to show you through, and glad we were able to do it on a day while you can't go outside, but on a day where no equipment's going, and you can kind of see the project from ground up, and hopefully it'll be full in the next 6 months with tenants you're going to bring us. So it's great.
I'll have to do that.
So it kind of ended that video a bit abruptly, so I just jumped into the old podcast studio here to record a bit more of an ending. Really want to thank Kris for taking the time to set that up and walk me through and share his insights. I hope that video was helpful. If you want to see more about the exterior of the building and important things to take in mind when you're looking at the outside, I did a video which I'll put up here, and I'd encourage you to go to check that one out. And I'd really like you to be involved in the content making that I'm doing for this channel. And the best way to do that is to just let me know if this is helpful. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Give it a thumbs down if it sucked, and I will try to tweak future videos accordingly. And if you have anything to add or comment, I'd really appreciate a comment below, just to let me know if this is helpful. So thanks again if you stuck around all the way to the end. Really do appreciate your support on this channel, and just going towards my goal of just trying to add as much value as I can and share as much information is really the sole goal of this. So I appreciate you coming along for the ride. I'll catch you in the next video.